Rain for rain, for rain, for rain, beautiful rain. Don't disturb me, beautiful rain. Oh, come.
2002, I had one of the best experiences of my entire life. I had the opportunity to travel with elders from Hawaii and other places to Bali and Johannesburg, South Africa. And as we took our journey together, we not only journeyed through places and cultures, but we also journeyed through time. And as a result of that, we remembered something. The story that we remembered is the story of the Necklace of Mysteries. And the way I found out about this Necklace of Mysteries wasn't in one moment with the telling of a story. First came experiences that didn't quite make sense, but were very touching when they happened. When we were in Bali, there were several of us there in the delegation, including the two Hawaiian elders, Mr. Makua and Auntie Poi Poi. Mr. Makua would pray the sun up. A man would come by with a net bag full of shells, and every day he would motion that these shells were available for sale. And just before we left, Mr. Makua motioned for the man to come up. And the two of them talked with each other, and then they negotiated the sale of two of these beautiful shells, which are in a spiral. I knew that Mr. Makua really appreciated what it took to dive so deep to get the kind of shells that this man was bringing.
But by the boat diving, I'm tired for diving. Yeah.
For dive?
For dive. Not here.
Yeah, because this is deep water stuff.
And it's head, yeah.
But there seemed like there was something more. The next morning, Mr. Makua saw that man again, and he told him that he would be leaving. And there was a great deal of emotion between the two men. Mr. Makua said, when we got back home to Hawaii, he told me on the phone that somehow they had achieved some kind of understanding.
Then I'd like you to make offering for me.
Okay.
Your family temple, your temple, you make offering for me. Okay?
Thank you very much for your kind to me.
You make offering, your God for me, your family.
You're very good. I'm never see for the guest like you. Very good. I'm praying you in the temple.
Yes. They are a day ahead, and I'm a day behind. When I arrived home, 10 o'clock that evening, I got the hit. He just had put the offering on, and I got it. I sat down, and from 10 o'clock that evening till 6 o'clock the next morning, I wrote a poem about him.
So I often thought about that shell man. I thought, I wonder what the meaning of it was. So some months later, we got to South Africa. And when we were there, we had the chance to meet with a Zulu elder named Credo Mutwa. The conversation went the way most traditional conversations go. Credo Mutwa began to tell traditional stories from his history and from his culture, and that was by way of introducing us to Zulu culture, but also a way of finding out how we're related to each other.
Yes. You went far away in the world with this great warrior man. They call it
Maui?
Yes, Maui. He was a great chief.
Yes.
And he went across the sea, and he never came back.
Well, there was a kind of a hush in the room because, of course, some of us come from the island of Maui, and Maui is a traditional spiritual figure that figures centrally in Hawaiian culture. And we wondered how this man in South Africa could know about Maui.
Maui, the great god man, he left Libya and he went across the world, a brave warrior. And he fished many countries, many islands. He brought them out of the sea. He was a real man, not a story. He was there. Why? Because we also in South Africa, we the black people, we know Maui or Mawela, the one who crosses the ocean. He was a real man. He went away to the land of the sunrise and never came back.
From that conversation and how that brought us back into the ancient connections between Hawaiian people and African people, Credo Mutwa produced this incredible necklace, which must have weighed close to 20 pounds. And it had really strange, interesting beads, and the beads were rocks the size of a man's fist, a fistful of rock. And he asked, did anyone at the table know what this meant? Could anyone decipher the information that was encoded on the rocks? So I tried to make myself humble. I knew I didn't know what was on those rocks. And the necklace passed from person to person. And then just before it got to Auntie Poi Poi, I saw her hands start to tremble like this, both of them. And I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be good. Whatever is going to be happening, I really want to hear.
Pu'ubay, ay tapito, ay tapoto, ay kara. In other words, I said the heart. It is the pico or the center of the universe of the woman.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the top of the head of all things that is to come. The leaf of life will bring forth many in different stages. And then the sun will shine. The sun that had taken Africa's people away, the boat, like cattle, slaved. The fruit of the land has been barren. And then the coming back of the children. Again the sea shall arrive, and the fishes shall be like the silver fishes of knowledge, shall come back, and no war shall ever be again. This is what the sundial is telling.
Yes, ma'am.
It will open up the whole world. The center of the eye says that within the 2012, the year of the opening. Let me grab that. 2, 3.
This is a lady from New Zealand who's reading this. And she's reading it exactly as Aunt Maya.
And the tribes will again dwell. And the main 2 important tribes that belong to this land will again survive in the ancestral lands again.
Credo Mutwa told Auntie that many wise men in his tribe had tried to learn from him how to read this necklace of mysteries, but they weren't able to.
I wish all of you, really wish that there had been other Sangomas besides Virginia who hear this. Here is a woman from New Zealand, from Hawaii, who has never seen this thing, but she is reading it, and I swear before God, exactly as I was taught.
Part of the conversation that came out of that revelation of Auntie Poi Poi's had to do with wave walkers. So when I got home, I thought again about how important it is to bring Indigenous elders together. And then I also thought, really with some despair, how terrible it is that this knowledge is dying and not getting passed on. So while this was going over in my mind, to comfort myself, I recalled to mind something else that happened to me in South Africa. The occasion was our visit to the Cradle of Humankind. It was a winter day, and the landscape was desolate, semi-arid, with rising hills. In a sense, it looked like the bed of an ancient sea. Those were the contours of the land. And everything was gray or rocky, and the winds that blew were really cold. We left the elders in the vehicle because the vehicle couldn't make it up the top of this hill. So myself and another delegate, Audrey Scott Williams, made it to the top of the hill to look at an archaeological dig where they had taken out the remains of the oldest human being, and that's why they call it the Cradle of Humankind. There's a beautiful young African woman who was the head of the dig, and she was telling us that she was the first African to ever be in charge of an archaeological dig, and also what that meant, because she came from a culture that was patriarchal, and normally men would be the head of something like this.
So I'm the first lady to become a site manager in paleoanthropology.
Oh, how wonderful. Yeah. The work that you're doing is so important, this ancient knowledge and history.
My granny used to say I'm too big for my boots. That's what she's always saying. Yeah, I'm digging my ancestors. I want to find out where I belong. Where am I coming from? And I'll find out.
Double meaning.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing, and I'm proud of doing that.
And when she said that, I just felt this wave of emotion come through me. And I thought about how that's been my work too, digging for my ancestors, setting up academic programs and working with elders around the world, trying to bring this ancient knowledge forward for today's time. And somehow it felt like I'm right here at the source of my life's work and the meaning of my work, and it's held in the hands of this beautiful young woman. So after she had finished her talk, I asked if I could make a prayer of thanks, and the Africans doing the dig, and Audrey and myself, some others gathered in a circle. And the thing is, when I made this prayer, I said it in English, but the form it was American Indian, my own culture. And perhaps that's why I could feel the depth with which the African people in our circle were praying. It was, even without them praying, the feeling was a sense of being in a time out of mind place. And when I was done with the prayer, I felt really full and happy. And all of a sudden, this feeling welled up in me, and I felt tears coming down my face and strong emotion. And I was trying to gain my composure, so I kind of stopped and sort of pretended to look out across this, off this hill and across this deep, deep landscape. And when I did, all of a sudden I was in a different place and time, and the temperature was warm, and the seabed was filled with this beautiful sea green water, and the feeling was just love, pure love. It just was so amazing. Then I really started to cry, and just as quickly as the image was there, it was gone. And when I got down the hill to the Land Rover, I went over to Bua's side, and the bench seat that he was on was elevated so that where he was sitting was at the level of my head. And I walked over to him, almost running really, with all this emotion still in me. And I reached up for his hand, and he reached up for mine, and I put my head against his face, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And he reached out with his other hand, and he had this huge, wonderful hand. His fingers were like the shape of cigars. And he reached out so gently and touched the side of my head, and he said, "You remembered." And then last March, which was about 1.5 years after this experience happened, Mr. Makua was killed suddenly and unexpectedly. And as I went back through the memories, I realized that there was still something at the back of my mind that didn't add up that I wanted to know. So I arranged to have a phone conversation with Credo Mutwa. And when I did get to talk to him, I explained to him what had happened to me at this Cradle of Humankind. And he said, ah, yes, he said, that's the place where the first people came to Earth. He said, and these people were from the stars. So they decided that what they were going to do is create a civilization here on Earth that was based in love. And they did. And it lasted for a while, he said, until tribes came in from the north, warriors, and destroyed them. And he told me, he said, you can see their descendants today in people who are, and he was struggling for words in English, he said, near the water, near the ocean. And he said, these first star people were rather curious people. They didn't like to eat anything cooked. They ate shellfish and things from the ocean. And he said, you would call them today beachcombers. And I thought, beachcombers? And it still didn't mean really anything to me. So then I asked him, but why the color green, Baba Mutwa? Why is that touching me so deeply? And he said, ah, green, that was the color of the first people's eyes. So after I talked to Credo Mutwa, I called Auntie Poi Poi up, and I asked, I was telling her about what he had said about the star people, and she nodded and she said yes. And then I told her about, he said that the descendants were beachcombers. We would call them beachcombers today. And she said, no, not beachcombers, wave walkers. And what amazed me when she identified those first people as wave walkers is that, how did she know that? And what is it that the two of those elders know? And I can't say really anything more because I don't understand more of it than that. But I know it's something really wonderful and really sacred.
To the mountain, I am when the sun goes down, my birds from the trees are singing sweet for the night. Sun to the mountain, I am dreaming.